My goals today are to help ignite your curiosity, to launch where we can go with that curiosity, and to explore what we can do with regards to diversity, inclusion, and universal design. They're pretty big concepts, but we'll get there. Now, I have a very good friend who uses an aphorism that is a version of, we often do well when we come from a place of love. And beyond the human rights imperative, to do what is right because each and every person is entitled to basic rights. I find that when we build commonality and community and truly love, that often helps to motivate and activate our lenses so that we can view things in a more diverse way. So today, one of the things that I'm going to ask you to do is work with me to actively participate and build a sense of community in this room. And because we're talking about diversity, inclusion, and universal design, I'm going to ask you to respond in a little bit more diverse manner. So when a speaker asks you questions, how do you usually respond? You clap your hands, maybe you might hoot, you might holler. What I'm going to ask you to do is respond both visually and auditorily. So in addition to that auditory piece of clapping your hands and indicating that you're there, if you can also respond visually in a way that works for you, wave your hands, do jazz hands, or in sign language, thank you, or clapping, sorry, thank you in sign language. I'm going to ask you, when I ask questions, to participate and to be active. Okay? Are you in? All right, let me hear you. Come on, I need to hear you. Awesome. And let me see you. Can I see some hands in the air, some shaking? This way, when we respond in more diverse manners, what we do is we include more people. So I'm going to ask you to do that. And we're going to do a quick check today to see what kind of commonality and community we have here in this room. What places of love we come from. So let's start with a really easy one that should get a lot of noise and a lot of visual out of you guys. And I know it's the beginning of the afternoon, so we'll work up the energy for our next speakers as well. How many of you care about or love, and yes, you can care about and love yourself, someone who is female? Okay, it's a good start. How many of you care about or love somebody who is trans? Identifies as non-binary? Excellent. Let's try some other diversity areas. How many of you love or care about someone who has a different place of ancestry, race, or religion? Excellent. Good diversity in this group. How about somebody who experiences marginalization because of their age? How about somebody who experiences marginalization because their source of income or because they receive social assistance? Okay, that's a lot of diversity. I'm hearing and I'm seeing from some of you that there is a lot of love and a lot of commonality in this room. Now, one of the challenges, though, is that we've missed a whole area of diversity. And in a lot of diversity training and in a lot of diversity education, this area is minimalized or marginalized. So let's do another quick participatory bit in this room. How many of you love or care about somebody who, at one point of time, permanently or temporarily, has used crutches, a wheelchair, or a walker? Most of us, right? Someone whose brain wiring or chemistry is such that they perceive, think, or behave differently. How many of us know or are someone who sees or hears differently? We've got a really great, loving, and diverse group in this room, and that is a great place to start igniting our curiosity about the links between diversity, inclusion, and universal design. So, one of the things that I really think is important, in addition to coming from a place of love, is that we accentuate the positive. Had I been born at a different time in history, had I been born with a different accident of birth, I may have experienced in my life a lot more marginalization. If I was born 100 years ago, as a female, I would not have been legally a person. That has changed, obviously. Had I been seeking work at a different time in history, my ancestry, which is partially Irish, may have led me to encounter signs that said, no Irish need apply. I haven't encountered that at all. When I came to U of A and to the Faculty of Education in the 1980s, there was, to say the very least, a strong female presence in that faculty. Unlike some of my student colleagues at the time or earlier who were in primarily and predominantly male-dominated faculties, I never had to go searching for a ladies' washroom from floor to floor. But that did happen, and it's changed. Now, because I had no physical accessibility and mobility issues, I was able to enter and exit all of the buildings using whichever door I chose. That meant that I could choose my classes based upon my field of study, my preferences. I didn't have to schedule my classes to get from one quasi-accessible door way around to the other side to the next building's accessible door. That has, to some extent, shifted, and I'm very, very appreciative of all of that privilege. And I think it's important that we acknowledge, though, that we do have, as society, despite how much progress we have made, a long, long way to go. And with that long way to go, we have learned from some other movements. Me Too, What's Up, Time's Up, sorry. Me Too, Time's Up, Black Lives Matter, Make It Awkward. All of those movements have in common for me the lesson that a lack of illegality, a lack of criminality is not enough. It is absolutely not enough. And beyond that, I have also learned that legal minimums are marginalizing. If we pitch only to the legal minimum, we will marginalize someone. Well, despite all of that progress that we've made that I talked about, and the learning that we are doing across diversity groups and amongst and betwixt diversity groups, myself and other persons with disabilities still experience a great deal of marginalization, not just every day, but many times within each and every day. And that marginalization actually comes from choices that we have made as a society and choices that we make as individuals. However, we really need to look at where can we go with this? How can we build on this? We've learned, we've grown, I'm considered a person now. So how can we build on those positives and use them as launch pads for action towards the community of love and commonality and support and diversity that we have even in this room here? Well, one of the things that we can do is acknowledge that a great deal of the marginalization for persons with disabilities comes from the historical models from which we view disability. Disability historically comes from a medical model. Most of our legislations and policies that are related to accessibility, and you will notice I talk about accessibility more than I talk about disability, and I'll get to that, come from this medical model. The medical model of disability views disability instead of as a difference. It views disability as something that needs to be fixed, to be changed, or to be cured. And within that medical model of disability, what we have is a construct where the person who encounters barriers, the person with the disability, bears the onus of identifying and articulating and bringing to others' attention the barriers that they face, the things that are disabling them from the outside in. Now, with that medical model, if there is no disclosure, there is no legal duty to accommodate. And in some ways, that makes sense. If we don't know what is needed, how do we know what to do? The medical model, like I said, counts on that person who is encountering the barrier to identify the challenge. What it requires is that I out my invisible disabilities and must be marginalized and excluded to eventually down the line be somewhat included. Now, my guess is looking and hearing all of the diversity and commonality and love in this room, that most of us would say, that's not okay. That's not an all right way to do things. So, what can we do? Well, to move forward, we need to look where we want to go. And where do we want to go? I think if we're going to be inclusive, then we need to look at a social model of disability. That social model of disability turns the historical models completely on their heads. Instead of the person with the disability who is encountering the barrier being responsible to identify and articulate and out their visible or invisible disabilities, the social model of disability places the onus upon the designers of events, of programs, of education, of buildings, the designers of anything. It places the responsibility for identifying and addressing barriers proactively on the people who are building the barriers, who are building the programs, the events, the education. Now, as we're looking where we want to go, to that warm, welcoming, and inclusive community that embraces the diversity that you guys have all expressed in here, we've talked about what we need to do. We need to shift from a medical model over to a social model. How do we get there? There's a wonderful tool called universal design. Universal design holds at its values that design from the very beginning should anticipate and proactively design away from barriers. We want to design for the broadest possible participatory group so that more and more individuals with diverse needs can show up, can attend an event, can go to school, can access a building, can use a computer program without having to make modifications. With that, it gives us a tool. So we've talked about igniting your curiosity. Then we talked about accentuating the positives and using them as a launch pad towards action to that loving, caring, diverse community that we have created in this room that I hope will move throughout here. If we do the how, the universal design piece, then we can move forward to be more actively inclusive. And if we work on universal design from the very beginning of every project, not only is the social imperative of inclusion and diversity addressed, it also works really well with budgets. If we design proactively rather than reactively, it is usually cheaper. In addition to being inclusive, it saves money. And for those of you who are planning and programming, it also means that you're not having to respond and react, you've anticipated. And with all of that, what will happen is there is more inclusion. Now, when I first started learning about universal design, I thought, oh my gosh, that's so intimidating. Universal is such a huge word. My friends and colleagues quickly taught me that individually and collectively, we have a great deal of agency, a great deal of influence, and a great deal of power in incorporating universal design into each and every one of our roles within society, whether it's a work role, a social role, or a recreational role. So what I'm going to do is give you a few quick tips on how to get that ball rolling, how to look where you want to go to that inclusive, warm, welcoming community, and how to build that ahead of time. So, one of the things that you can do to move forward to universal design is look at your institutional and place of work policies. Are there statements about universal design? Are there procedures for universal design in those policies and procedures? If there's not, ask why. Speak up in town halls, post on a forum, ask questions on a blog. Get the conversation started. Even smaller, what we can do is use accessibility checkers. How many of you knew that accessibility checkers are built into basic Word and PowerPoint and Excel documents? Anybody? Ooh, I'm hearing a lot of silence. They are built in. All you have to do is go to the help button and find them. Run the accessibility checkers every time. Your documents will be clearer, they will be more consistent, and they will be screen reader friendly, which will include more people. If you are building a website, build that website using the highest level of accessibility standards. And if you're a website builder and you don't know what accessibility standards are, they're easy to find. They really and truly are. Use them right from the beginning. If you're a user of a website who wants to influence the inclusion and diversity in a group, run a website accessibility checker on that site. The report will tell you what the issues are, why they are issues, how they can impact people, and give you some tips to address at least one of the accessibility issues in that website. Are you making videos? If you're making videos, for heaven's sakes, caption them. Not only is captioning great for people who have hearing loss, it's also wonderful for those of us who like multimodal learning, seeing and hearing at the same time. It's also great for language learners. These are little tips. They are small things. But the idea of today is to ignite your curiosity about the link between diversity, inclusion, and universal design, to talk about some of the positives and social progress we've made that we can use as launch pads to move forward and proactively. One of the lovely things that I use as an example is the fact that we now know when we are in traditional Indigenous lands that it is appropriate and respectful to acknowledge those Indigenous lands. Now, we don't ask, is there anybody in the audience who has Indigenous heritage? We do that as a universal step because it is the right thing to do. We can build on that inclusion betwixt and across and amongst diversity groups. So today I leave you with 3 key messages. Come from a place of love. Use that to ignite your curiosity and open your eyes to different areas of diversity. Accentuate the positive. Find great things and good things to build upon. And explore. Explore how you, in each and every one of your roles, can include universal design in one part of your life. If you do that, you will help to create more commonality, more diversity, and more inclusion for all people, including persons with disabilities.